Back when the video game craze first caught on like a fever, what kid didn't dream of achieving that high score and being recruited to use those skills to save the galaxy from invasion? I mean, come on.
It was a big deal back then. It still is, but definitely.
Yeah, The Last Starfighter hit the zeitgeist all right, and it remains a timeless and beloved film to this day. Released on July 13th, 1984. The film starred Lance Guest, Robert Preston, and our first guest this evening. Catherine Mary Stewart is a terrific actress with extensive credits in film and television, including Night of the Comet, The Seawolf, World Gone Wild, and Weekend at Bernie's. Her latest film is the critically acclaimed and audience favorite, I've heard so many raves about this film, Love and Dancing. And we're privileged to welcome her to Movie Geeks United tonight, Miss Catherine Mary Stewart. Miss Stewart, are you with us?
I am.
Welcome.
But how did you know it was me? I mean, I just dialed this number you gave me, and it's like, what? How do they know I'm here?
It's Russian roulette with these phone calls.
Honest to God, it's like there was this long... I don't know, it said, if you want to get on the list, just press 1. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll get on the list. I don't know.
You're on a very long list here tonight, but we appreciate you being here so much. And this movie obviously means a lot to so many people, including us. We have such fond memories of it, and it takes us back every time we watch it again. But tell me a little bit about your ambitions and your career leading up to this, because I understand that you were primarily interested in dancing.
Yeah, I was a dancer before all this. First of all, I love you, movie geeks. You make my life worthwhile.
We love you, okay? You made high school a lot more bearable, okay?
Oh, good. I'm so happy. I was a dancer. I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and I was a dancer there, and a professional dancer. After high school, I went to London and studied dance, and that's where I got into acting. I auditioned as a dancer in a movie called The Apple, which was this bizarro rock musical, which actually has its own little cult following.
It does.
30 years later, I'm like, huh? What? But it's, so anyway, that got me into acting, and, lead role in a movie was on my resume all of a sudden. So when I moved to Los Angeles, it was like, I guess also they're always in Los Angeles. It's such a machine that they're always looking for a new, fresh face, and I had a little experience behind me, so it kind of got me out there, And honestly, it all just sort of snowballed. I didn't have any preconceived ideas of what it was I was going to do. I was a dancer, and then I was all of a sudden this actress. I thought, well, I'll just go with that for a while and see what happens. You're young, you're naive, you just kind of go with the flow, and I was having a lot of fun, and when I first arrived in Los Angeles, it was a bit of a, struggle in terms of I had to all of a sudden do this whole auditioning thing, and wondering how I would pay my rent and things like that.
Right.
And I ended up in a soap opera, Days of Our Lives. And while I was doing the soap opera, I auditioned for The Last Starfighter and got that. So during The Last Starfighter, I was doing Days of Our Lives at the same time, and it was just a whirlwind. And, there's something about being young and naive that is just kind of, you just go along with it, and I'm having a good time, and I'm sitting in L.A. with the beaches and the palm trees.
Right.
And I'm going, this is a good thing, and I don't even care what happens next.
That's a great life. Yeah, that's a great time.
Yeah.
So that must have been a grind. You're doing Days of Our Lives, I imagine, during most days. Well,
they actually gave me some time off to do the movie. Okay. So it worked out. There were some days that I had to do both. A lot of The Last Starfighter was shot at night. So, you shoot the show during the day and then drive out to the desert in the night. Honestly, I didn't care. I was just having a good time. I was enjoying every second of it.
What were your impressions of the material? for The Last Starfighter?
I've been asked this before, but again, I was just like, okay, I'll do that. I mean, I thought the story was very sweet, but truly I was sort of, I remember specifically auditioning for it and feeling really great about it and having a callback. And Lance and I read together in the callback, and we just kind of clicked. I remember sitting in the callback in front of whoever it was, the director and the producers and all that other stuff, and he and I were kind of ad-libbing a little bit, but we felt extremely comfortable together. It just felt very, very natural. Yeah. And it felt like that through the entire process of making the movie. Even before we started shooting, he and I would get together and talk about our characters and our relationship and all that other stuff, which seems like that's what actors are supposed to do, but often you don't have time to do that, or you don't really like the person you're working with anyway, or something like that. But he and I, it was a very comfortable fit.
Yeah.
And he was terrifically giving as an actor. And honestly, I really was coming into this whole thing very naively and truly just having a great time and really no preconceived ideas of what it would all mean or anything like that. I'd done this other movie. I'd done a couple of other movies. I did a small thing in Canada as well. And I don't know, I wasn't somebody who sat there and planned out my whole life.
Right.
Which was, in retrospect, it was so great because maybe that made everything a little fresher in a way. I don't know.
And you were living in the moment, and I think, and that's a valuable lesson for any actor as well. I mean,
right. I think that's important, but everybody is different. Everybody works differently. Some people really need to have everything planned out precisely. I mean, I think a lot of things have changed for me over the years. So.
But in that business especially, you can't plan everything out. It doesn't work. It doesn't work around your schedule, the individual schedule. There are much greater forces at work, bigger things at work. So you probably had the best attitude.
Well, but I also remember years and years ago meeting Tom Cruise in an audition. And man, he knew what he wanted. He was the most determined little guy I'd ever met. I was like, I mean, it was before he was Tom Cruise, I think it was we were auditioning for The Outsiders. And I was like, well, he's kind of cute. Maybe he'll ask me out or something. And we left the audition together. He's like, I don't normally let myself be put on tape, but in this case, it's blah, 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 blah. And I was like, do you want to, get an ice cream? This is me. And he's like, and this is how my entire life is going to go. And I'm like, okay, nice meeting you. And hey, I look at that now and I'm like, well, of course he's where he is now. Cause
that's one determined guy right there.
He was so determined. It sort of blew you away how determined he was. And obviously it paid off for him a little bit. Not much, but.
But by the sound of it, I mean, it sounds like such a wonderful time for you. But the actual set of The Last Starfighter, was it a familial kind of environment on the set?
It was so terrific on the set. I mean, Nick Castle, first of all, the director, is like a big kid. And he obviously loved every second of what we were doing. And it really is, on any set, it's a trickle-down thing. If the director's a jerk, then you're not going to have a good time. Nobody's going to be happy, and it's just going to wear off on everybody. But Nick Castle just has this joie de vivre, it was a joy. It was a joy working on that set. Everybody was terrific Lance and I had this great time, and all the kids, in the trailer park were great, and the adults, too. I ran into Ellen Blake, who played Clara. she's one of the ladies in the park, you know.
Right.
I forget exactly what her line was, that her stuff was, that she was one of the characters. And I ran into her in New York, and it was like, you know, almost like running into your grandma again, you know. And I have such fond memories of everybody in the trailer park. It truly was like just a happy set. Everybody was having a good time. And it wasn't the most comfortable, you know, working conditions out there in the middle of nowhere. And like I said, mostly night shooting, which means, you know, you drive out there at 6 p.m., you start working at 9. You're like trying to get the last shot before the sun rises at 4:30 in the morning. And there's something, I swear to God, there's something about the temperature. It drops like 20 degrees at 5. And everybody's like, you know. But yeah, it was really, it couldn't have been a better situation. I mean, I was really lucky to have one of my first movies be that idyllic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so too. And Nick Castle, he is terrific, and he actually did another film that I know people really took to their hearts even years later with The Boy Who Could Fly.
Yeah.
Oh, what another wonderful movie. Did you have interaction with Robert Preston? I know this was his last film, I believe.
It was his last film.
Yeah.
And I just happened to cross paths with him after the main shoot was over. We were doing some pickup stuff at in a studio at Lorimar, and he happened to have a couple of scenes or something like that. I'm not sure what he was shooting, but he was shooting before I arrived and had wrapped when I got there, and I got to meet him because we never had any scenes together. And I was so happy to meet him because it was he was one person I knew was a huge star, and I was disappointed that I wasn't working with him. So as he was leaving, I think Nick probably introduced me to him because I was so shy, and I was just like, oh my God. And he was one of those actors that just has this glow, or maybe it was just the way I felt about him, but he literally glowed, and he was exactly what you would expect him to be. His personality is just what it is on screen. It's larger than life and incredibly warm, and he took my hand and he kissed it, and he didn't know who I was, he knew, I guess, basically who the character was, but I was just like, I'm never washing my hand. One of those totally cliche things, but that was my meeting with Robert Preston.
Wow.
It was unforgettable. And the other thing I have to say, though, Dan O'Hurley has quite quite a resume himself.
Yes, he does.
But honestly, I never saw him out of his Greg makeup. And so we did this a few months ago in Los Angeles. We did this 25th anniversary, interview thing for the release of the 25th anniversary CD or DVD for Last Starfighter. And I thought, I really ought to figure out who this Dan O'Hurley guy is. So I watched I watched him. In one of his movies, not Swiss Family Robinson, but oh God.
I keep thinking you want to say Failsafe, the original Failsafe.
No, it was like Robinson Crusoe, excuse me. Oh my gosh. I watched him in Robinson Crusoe, 1954 movie, so that I could, actually sort of in my mind at least identify him. So that was, another terrific, amazing actor.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Did you have any, of course, I don't think you could have any inkling as to the longevity this film would enjoy, but when did you realize that? When did you realize that this had hit a nerve?
I would say about 3 years ago. I live in New York now, and although I've kept my finger in the acting pot all these years, I've really been sort of out of the loop. But I decided about 3 years ago to really go back to L.A. and see if I can't get a little bit of work here and there or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I started auditioning again, and these casting guys who are in like their 30s, I would come in to read for something, and they would just be looking at me with these wide eyes and their mouths open, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, I remember you when I was 12, and you were like my first crush." And I was like, blown away by this. It was like, are you serious? What? I had no idea. I had no idea that this whole sort of generation of boys had watched this, and it had, and girls as well, by the way, had that sort of influence. And, you sort of sit down and you kind of analyze it and everything, and there are not a lot of movies like that nowadays where this simple boy from a trailer park is thrust into this situation that makes him this kind of a superhero sort of guy. It gives the audience a sense of possibility, and I don't think you get that so much anymore. I mean,
I don't think so either. I think
that innocence is missing.
Yeah, I think that the movie's very hopeful and innocent, and what I see a lot of now is cynicism.
Yeah.
And Jamie on. That cynicism's in there. Yeah.
The cynicism, or just pure escapism, where it's just like you're just blasted with, I don't know, and it's hard to really focus on it. And I got a lot of that. I get that sort of reaction from girls with the movie Night of the Comet that I did with Kelly Maroney.
That's another great one.
Right. I mean,
that movie. Yeah,
it puts these girls in this extraordinary situation that they have to sort of figure out. They're just these regular Valley girls, And I hear from women, how that really empowered them somehow. And again, it may even be more so for women characters in films that have that sort of influence. And it's too bad. It's sorely missed, I think.
I think so too, but just to echo part of what you just said, we have tons of people in our chat room currently that really had a major crush on you as well during their formative years.
The two of us in the whole entire chat room. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I wish you guys had been around when I was in my 20s. I'm just walking around with my finger up my nose.
Another movie that you were in, Mischief, was very popular with all of us in high school too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was a lot. We enjoyed that one a lot too. Still do. But.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just watched that recently myself, and Doug McKeon, who was in that, we just hooked up again. This is the other thing, is that it's been all these years, and this whole life has gone by. I now have a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son, and all these years have gone by, and I hooked up with Doug McKeon this spring for the first time since Mischief, and he's just the greatest guy ever with the cutest kids. Oh my God, it was so much fun, and he's directed some stuff, and he writes and he produces, and also Kelly Maroney from Night of the Comet. I had lunch with her when I was in Los Angeles this spring, and I hadn't seen her, I don't know how long, since just a few years after. So it's like reliving this whole thing again, which is kind of cool. I mean, I never expected it, and I never sort of sat around pining for it. But gosh, it's so much fun to relive all this stuff and just laugh and have a good time about it.
Yeah, and we feel the same way when we're able to relive these movies and speak to talents like yourself that were such a major part of our youth. Because their movies are immortal and they're just so powerful for us. But when you look at The Last Starfighter, or you rewatch Night of the Comet, or any of the other early films you were involved in, what does that feel like for you? In a way, is it almost like watching very expensive home movies in a strange way? I guess in a way, but not really. I mean, the neatest thing for me actually is, I think it was either last year or the year before. It's very, this is going to sound very self-centered, but both my kids
for their birthday parties, had sleepovers, and they played like Night of the Comet and The Last Starfighter for their friends, which to me was like, it was just cool that they'd even want to do that.
Yeah.
That's the most important. It was just like, oh, man, I can't believe that they actually care about this. So that was really, really cool. But I mean, watching it you feel a little removed, I have to say. I mean, it's kind of, I sort of look at myself and don't recognize myself really. I mean, I look so young, and I've changed so much in so many ways, physically as well as in my acting and all that other stuff. But I'm really proud of those movies because I think, it was lucky that I did them. It wasn't like a conscious choice on my part that I'm going to do some movie that will have longevity and will make some sort of a statement. I know that I've never had any desire to do, I don't know how to describe it, maybe morally suspect movies or anything like that. It's never entered sort of if anything like that came up, it would just be like, no thanks. But so I guess that served me well in many ways. But I guess basically in my naivete at that time, there's some pride there too.
Yeah, I would think so. But you so many years have gone by, and I'm sure you are a different actress now than you were then. How has that enjoyment of the craft of acting deepened for you over the years, do you think?
Well, as an actor, life experience is so important. So I think that hopefully it comes across anyway, my acting has deepened or has more dimension, hopefully. I can draw on so much more life experience. And it's funny because I always played a lot younger than I was, and I still do, actually. I look younger than I am, apparently.
Oh, you're very beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, I'm not saying that to, try to get a compliment or something. I was, I think, 24 when I did Last Starfighter. I was supposed to be like 17, but that's just genetics. It's plain and simple. But I've always had this, because I've always been looked at as younger than I am, even if, by strangers and everything, I've always wanted to be older. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So as I get older, I'm actually loving it. I love being older. My mother used to say to me, people that have no lines in their face never smile. And I thought, that's always sort of stuck with me, that as my face matures and I have lines, Lord knows I've had a lot of laughs in my day. I'm a smiling person. Anybody who knows me will tell you that. I'm just like, well, except my husband. I'm a bitch to him. But, those are the frown lines I have. But, I enjoy sort of the aging process. So it's on many levels, not only for my work, but just growing into myself, and you just can't help but have more confidence, or you just know yourself better, and it's a good thing. It's a really good thing.
And you have come back into films, and as I mentioned, your latest is Love and Dancing.
Right.
Is there anything else upcoming? Any other projects on the horizon?
I just did a Lifetime movie called A Neighbor's Secret. Which I'm not exactly sure when it'll be out, but it'll probably in the fall. So that'll be on Lifetime TV. And let me think, Love and Dancing. And I've done, like a thing for Spike TV and a couple of other Lifetime movies, that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of poking away.
Yeah, but you're doing great, and I've seen many of the recent movies that you've done, and you're still just terrific. And I want to thank you from all of us for being such a big part of our childhood, and this has been just a big joy for us to have you on tonight.
Yes,
well, it's a pleasure and such a wonderful surprise for me to be around still and have the recognition that you guys, that's the audience that makes up you guys. It gives me. It's just crazy to me, but it's wonderful, and I do not take it for granted for a second. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Come back anytime.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thanks a lot.